Hello and welcome to Stoppage Time. I'm Anthony Corby. Thank you so much for tuning in. Today, we will be going over some hot takes for who we think will win in the NFL, both the Super Bowl and MVP. We'll be talking about some other hot takes regarding the NFL and other sports, and we will be going over some sports news. Don't go anywhere because this is Stoppage Time.
Welcome to another edition of Shootout. I'm here with guest star Sean Chornobroff, and today we're going to be talking about a lot of things football related. So Sean, who wins the MVP race this year?
First off, love you calling me a guest star. Really made me feel appreciated here today.
Yeah.
And always happy to be here with you, Carl. But there's two different things in my opinion. Who will win the MVP, because that's very media driven, obviously, like who carries storylines, and who deserves the MVP. So who will win MVP as of right now? It's Lamar Jackson. I mean, that guy has not done anything to not strengthen his case. He has revolutionized that Ravens offense into replacing Flacco. He's a dual threat. We haven't really seen anyone like him since Michael Vick, and that offense is just built perfectly for him. So Lamar Jackson just goes against elite teams and doesn't have any struggle. I mean, he went against the Patriots, who have one of the best defensive units I've seen in a while. I think he won AFC Offensive Player of the Week that week. He puts up his passing numbers. If you just look at his pure passing numbers, outside of like QBR, like your yards, your touchdowns, are not overly impressive. He's not putting up Mahomes type passing numbers. But when you factor in the rushing numbers, the rushing touchdowns, all the other things he provides, how he affects a defense, that's what makes Jackson special. His ability to just create out of nowhere is why they run these different sets. You see them bring out 3 tight ends. You'll see them running the spread. You see him dropping back and creating for himself. Obviously, his offensive line helps. Guys like Ronnie Stanley, Orlando Brown, they do great things to help Jackson out. But the way Baltimore has tailored this system to Lamar Jackson, and how he has taken that system and ran with it to make the Ravens maybe the best team in football right now, is why he will ultimately be MVP if they keep on this pace.
Well, you brought up a lot of good points there, Sean. But I got to go with my man, Russell Wilson.
Tell me why.
Well, you see, I love my Patriots. And there's been a lot of, we have an easy schedule, right? And as soon as we went against the Ravens, we lost. So our offense is pretty bad. We have a bad red zone offense.
It's fairly pedestrian, yes.
So we went up against one good team, the Ravens. So if we have an easy schedule and we're really just pretending, I mean, look at Russell Wilson, who beat the 49ers. He ended their undefeated streak, and they have a pretty amazing roster, and they also have a phenomenal defense.
Hold up. Pretty amazing roster. I mean, that team's they have maybe the worst offensive line in football, and they're relying basically on rookie receivers. Their defense, good, nothing amazing in my opinion.
Oh, I mean, they are undefeated. They were undefeated.
Wait, are you talking about the Seahawks roster or the 49ers roster?
49ers.
Oh, no, that's correct. I thought you were talking about the Seahawks roster.
Oh, no.
Okay. Sorry, continue your point.
So Russell Wilson led his team against...
Do you mind? Wait, are you finished?
Yeah, pretty much. You get the point.
So here's my thing with that. Russell Wilson played fairly pedestrian through 3.5 quarters. Through regulation, he had like 150 passing yards in that game. Then he throws an interception in overtime. If that kicker can make the field goal, Russell Wilson doesn't end that undefeated streak. He played a fairly pedestrian game. The 49ers were without Kittle and Emmanuel Sanders, who their offense is fairly reliant on. And Robbie Gould was out their normal kicker. If Robbie Gould is in that game, they stay healthy, I don't think the Seahawks are taking that game. Jimmy Garoppolo and the 49ers defense won that game. Chase McLaughlin, the kicker's name, I think, booted that thing into the tunnel. He shanked a field goal that gave momentum to the Seahawks and allowed them to go out and win it. And you're saying he beat the best team in football. Well, before that, the Patriots were the best team in football. As I've said, great unit. He also beats the Texans. I believe Lamar did beat the Seahawks in Seattle. So you're telling me because Russell Wilson beat the 49ers, the quote-unquote best team in football, he deserves MVP. And I think Russ has done amazing things, don't get me wrong. I'm not by no means shaming Russell Wilson. But Lamar has done it too. He hasn't done anything that Lamar hasn't done. Before I mention who should win it is Christian McCaffrey, who's doing things nearly unseen. If you go back to the late 90s, Marshall Faulk was the do-it-all back. Roger Craig before him. They were the pre-models for the running back we have today. Christian McCaffrey has 1,100 rushing yards, 500 receiving yards, 14 total touchdowns. He's going to have like a 2,500 all-purpose yard season. Christian McCaffrey is doing ridiculous things with Kyle Allen at quarterback, relying on guys like DJ Moore at receiver. Good receiver, nothing special. Like, just not a special system. What is special about the Panthers is Christian McCaffrey. I mean, they're getting blown out by teams, but not because of McCaffrey. You mentioned how the 49ers were the best team in football. They lost them 51-13, but McCaffrey, I think, put up 150 yards. He's doing everything a human can do. Like, there's nothing else McCaffrey can do to really help that team. That's why he's my pick. Because, like I said, Lamar, amazing system. Good offensive line. Things that have really helped him out. They've got Mark Ingram and Gus Edwards. They've got good depth at running back. They upgraded the receiving core over the offseason. And since the Marcus Peters trade, they've had the number one defense in football. But McCaffrey doesn't really have any of that. So McCaffrey, in my opinion, is the guy. But he's not going to get that credit because we usually sway this award towards the quarterbacks as they carry the storyline. And Lamar has been amazing. But there's no way we just can't ignore Christian McCaffrey. And Russ has done some amazing things too. But he also almost lost to the Bengals in week 1 at home. They escaped with that game. It's not all his fault either because they've done a fairly poor job of surrounding him with talent. I mean, DK Metcalf's been a nice surprise, but if you get the average value of a second-round pick from him, especially the last second-round pick, Russ's season would have gone a little bit more down. His stats might be a little bit worse. Russell Wilson, been amazing. He's really carried that team. Lamar Jackson, been amazing. Amazing system. He's done amazing things with it. It's a creative system. They really play around with their pieces there. But Christian McCaffrey is the system. The system is built around Lamar. The system is Christian McCaffrey. It's handoff to McCaffrey, screen pass to McCaffrey. Every now and then Kyle Allen throws it to someone else. When Kyle Allen is bad, they're still good. The Panthers' offense, because of McCaffrey for the most part. McCaffrey is doing unseen things in my lifetime. I can't think of anyone else who has done things that he has done in the last 10 years. I finished my point.
Well, I think we talked enough about the MVP. Seems like the Ravens are putting up phenomenal stats this year. Who do you have winning the Super Bowl?
I'm going to talk about Lamar Jackson again because I've got the Ravens winning the Super Bowl.
The Ravens winning the Super Bowl.
As of right now, the Ravens are winning the Super Bowl in my opinion.
All right, I got actually a pretty good question for you. Ravens are 8-2, right?
Yeah.
All right, if the Patriots don't lose another game, we're likely to have home field advantage throughout the playoffs. And considering the fact that we have not lost a home game in forever, do you think the Ravens would be able to beat us at home in the playoff run?
Mark Sanchez beat Tom Brady at home in his prime.
But we have not lost a home game all this season.
I'm not questioning Gillette's home field advantage. It's a great home field advantage.
Yeah.
You mentioned it before. They've had a fairly pedestrian schedule. I'd have to dig back in time for stats on that more and to see the closeness of the game. But I don't question Lamar Jackson. He went into Seattle, which is arguably the best home field advantage in football, and did it. There's a reason they call it the 12th man there. It's because it is a 12th man. Lamar Jackson doesn't shy away from the moment. I mean, last year he sank a little bit in the playoffs, which is what worried me. The Chargers figured him out, but they have really rebuilt the system where it is insanely hard to beat. And another thing was they had Gus Edwards, a rookie at running back. Now he's the backup because they signed Ingram. They draft Hollywood in the first round. They've been creative with their tight ends this season. So, with that being said, I think the Ravens could definitely do it, especially considering the fact they're the number one defense in football since the Marcus Peters trade. Their secondary has looked elite. You guys put up 17 on the Eagles, who have arguably the worst secondary in football. Julian Edelman had to throw your game-winning touchdown last Sunday. So I think the Ravens could do it. I get it. Home field advantage is crucial. Been there, done that. But the thing is, John Harbaugh, been there, done that. He's won a Super Bowl already. And he did it with Joe Flacco.
I got one thing. What if we sign back Antonio Brown? What happens then?
That's not something I even want to speculate on.
You don't want to speculate?
I don't want to speculate it because, number one, there's a supposed meeting scheduled. AB's retracting everything he said because he realizes his ploy for attention is not working out. If you sign Antonio Brown back, he has to get back into game shape, locker room distraction, which is something the Patriots don't like. I mean, Michael Bennett was a minor locker room distraction because of a philosophical disagreement. He was released. Antonio Brown's as big of a distraction as it comes in the NFL. So I don't see if the Patriots do it, it's out of desperation. You guys are more than fine. You guys made the move for Sanu at the deadline for a reason. I don't see you guys signing Antonio Brown back.
Yeah, that's
especially until the investigation clears up, because I don't believe he's been fully cleared of some heinous accusations. If you guys sign back Antonio Brown, we could revisit that, but I'm going to want to see him in at least a game or two, because he's only played one game all season, which he didn't look bad in, but I believe it was against a poor team. I think it was against the Dolphins he played.
Yeah.
So, I'd like to see him against a team that has more than 2 wins before saying Antonio Brown's going to carry them, considering it takes a while to readjust to game shape. I get Antonio Brown might be the most talented receiver in football, but it is hard to get back into full game shape that quickly and then go right into postseason football, which is a whole different monster. I mean, look at Le'Veon Bell with his former teammate. Jets' offensive line is far from great, and I don't think their running styles fit perfectly, but Le'Veon sat out a year and doesn't look fully like he did only a year or two ago. So, with that being said, with you guys signing Antonio Brown, it doesn't exactly convince me. The media, Instagram, Twitter might be saying, oh, this pushes him over the top. Don't listen to that. Odell was supposed to push the Browns over the top. Where are they right now?
Who do you see the Ravens winning in the Super Bowl? Or
Who do I see
going
them
against? My bad.
Damn. Actually, this is one I haven't thought about much, but off the top of my head, I'm going to go with the Green Bay Packers. I want to say the Niners. I just don't think this is their year quite yet. I think next year is it. Jimmy G matures more into himself. He's still a little too turnover prone for my liking. But the one time Aaron Rodgers was given a top 10 defense in 2010, he carried a team to a Super Bowl. Didn't have a great running game, top 10 defense, but they've got like a top 15 defense, I believe. Not a horrible defense. I would like to see them hold up better against good competition, but Aaron Rodgers is playing out of his mind. He's got a top 5 receiver now, which I love Jordy Nelson. I love Greg Jennings in their prime. I never thought of them as the top 5 elite guy. Devontae Adams might be the best route runner in all of football. Aaron Jones is looking like an elite running back. They've got a guy who can finish off drives, who can actually extend the drive so it's not all on Aaron Rodgers. A young head coach who's really actually letting Aaron control the system and building it more around him instead of clashing. And Aaron Rodgers was making the playoffs when that wasn't happening. Now you're giving him a defense that they've put work in to improve and has looked better than recent years. Aaron Jones has blossomed, and they have a good backup there too. So, I see the Packers being the team to go to the Super Bowl to play the Ravens. I just don't think they'll be able to stop Lamar, Mark Ingram, and their defense will be able to get enough stops against the Packers because Marcus Peters has had a good season. People try to hate on him for getting burnt too much, but I believe at the time of the trade, Pro Football Focus had him rated as like a top 10 corner. I think it was number 7 exactly. And the Ravens defense has been the best in football since he got traded. So I see the Ravens going, see them playing the Packers. The Packers defense is good, but not good enough to carry them over the top. Who do you have? Let me ask you that.
You know, I'd have to say the Seahawks.
Let me please enlighten me on why the Seahawks are going to be carried by Russell Wilson, which he has never done before.
I don't know, you got
Well, he's been to the Super Bowl before, but I'm saying he's never carried a team. They had a Legion of Boom defense.
You got Lockett, and the Seattle Seahawks just recently signed Josh Gordon, and he's an amazing receiver. He's going into his prime right now. And the Seahawks already had a winning record without Josh Gordon, and now that they've acquired him, I do think they have a pretty good chance
All right.
that he's like a...
Can I ask you a question real quick?
Yeah.
So Josh Gordon is this great receiver entering his prime, as you said, right?
Yeah.
The Patriots are one of the most savviest teams in football, correct? Right?
Yeah. All right, yeah.
Then explain to me why they cut Josh Gordon. If he is so good, if he is that good, a guy that elite with a 43-year-old Tom Brady who is somewhat of a shell of his former self, why would you release a guy that talented?
Too injury prone.
Too injury prone? You don't keep him around on your roster? You're keeping Jacoby Myers around? Gunnar Olszewski's getting catches?
Well,
But Josh
we
Gordon
signed
is so
Mohamed Sanu like shortly after.
But
We
it's an
obviously
embarrassment
had
of
a plan
riches.
before then.
You don't just cut Josh Gordon if he's that good. He is not that good. He is not the guy he was in Cleveland.
Well, he's not. He is good when he's not injured, but he
But
gets
you keep
injured
him around.
almost every
You keep
damn
him
week.
around on your roster. Then you can dress 45 guys. There's more than enough receivers. The Patriots have shown they have depth. I'm getting rid of Gunnar Olszewski before I'm getting rid of Josh Gordon if he's that good. There's a reason they got rid of him. There's a reason the Patriots constantly make moves like this that prove how great they are. Josh Gordon is not going to carry a team over the top.
Well, damn.
And you also didn't mention how is their defense, who has gotten beat up a couple times. How are they going to stop the likes of Aaron Rodgers, the 49ers, who should have beat them already once and went into overtime when their top two targets weren't healthy?
Well, I should have been more clear. I think the Seattle Seahawks, their offense is pretty good, and I think if their offense scores points every time they go on a drive, I think they'd be able to win.
No, but I get it. I just do not have enough confidence in that Seahawks defense, and I do have confidence in Pete Carroll. I think they can. I think if I could see Seattle making the NFC Championship, I just don't have confidence that they're going to beat Green Bay. They're going to beat, San Francisco. And I know Jimmy G has never went to a Super Bowl, but he has seen what it takes for elite teams. Kyle Shanahan was the offensive coordinator in the 2015 Falcons. Emmanuel Sanders has been there, done that. While this team, the franchise itself, has not been there, they have guys who have been there. Richard Sherman at corner has done it before. So I can't see the Seattle Seahawks, who if it wasn't for Russell Wilson, would be a rebuilding team. One guy can't win you a Super Bowl. That's actually how I'm going to say this. I was just talking about how Aaron Rodgers couldn't do it on his own. Russell Wilson can't too. Tom Brady's always needed a decent defense, a Rob Gronkowski or a Randy Moss. Greatest quarterback of all time. Joe Montana had Bill Walsh, Jerry Rice, Roger Craig. Amazing defense. Nobody can do it all on themselves. It's a team game. For example, I was just talking about McCaffrey. One man can't do it all. I said he put up 150 yards against the 49ers. It was ridiculous. He still lost by 38 points because it's not a one-man game. There's 11 starters on each side of the ball plus your special teams unit. It's a team game. So with that being said, you can't just be saying Russell Wilson's going to have to carry me all the way. Deshaun Watson could not get past the first round because they did not have an offensive line or a team around him. That's why I cannot see Seattle making the Super Bowl.
Anyway, we'll send it back over to Tony for the fifth base.
Well, if you're a soccer fan and especially an MLS fan, then you understand the news recently. Yes, the Seattle Sounders have won their second MLS Cup in 4 years. It must suck to be a Portland Timbers fan right now, in all honesty, because the Timbers went from losing the MLS Cup this last year to having to watch their rival in the Sounders win it this year. They did win it in 2015, but they still lost recently, and that must hurt. And I expect that the reason that they were supposed to be ahead of Seattle this entire year was because of how they were performing down the stretch. But the MLS power ranking system is clearly flawed because the Timbers were placed ahead of Seattle for a majority of the year. It makes little sense, but then you consider guys like him. Timber Joe is a staple for Portland, and that must be the entire reason that they were as high as they were. Anyway, moving on to the NBA. Things are going about as they normally do. To win the East, all you have to do is build a team of 3 decent players, while in the West, you can win 60 games and still finish 10th place. About normal. We do have something that's different, though, and thank God it is different. The Golden State Warriors are awful. It's awesome. They are 3-13 or 14. Generally, they suck, and they're worse than the New York Knicks after winning 5 straight Western Conference final games and being in the NBA Finals 5 years in a row. So it's good to see teams like the Warriors finally stink, but it also kind of reminds you that the NBA, in the NBA, teams can flip on a dime. They can go from being good to being bad as quickly as they can go from being bad to being good. And that can take one season. There's very little rebuilding anymore, even though teams like to pride themselves on tanking. Unless you're the Knicks, you essentially can go from being like the worst team in the league to the best team in the league if you just get 3 good guys, especially in the East, like I said before. I swear, one of these years we're going to have a Game 7 situation where a team is getting blown out by the third quarter, the coach trades 3 of their top players, and they tell them to pack up and head to Cleveland. Speaking of Cleveland, the Browns are doing all right this year. They got off to a really slow start, but they've won a few games down the last few games. Unfortunately, they still don't look like they're going to make the playoffs. They were way overhyped at the beginning of the season to begin with, but it looks like they're probably going to finish third in the AFC, whatever that division is, the AFC North, even though they play in the East. But a lot of people, especially I heard people on ESPN talking about now that Kareem Hunt's back, the Browns are going to have a chance at making the playoffs or even the Super Bowl. But I think if you're actually going to make the playoffs, if you're the Cleveland Browns, you're going to need a bit more than your kicker. So, we'll send it over to Carl and Sean again for some of their hot takes in the first edition of Extra Time.
So, Mr. Chornabrough, what's your hot take?
All right, we've been talking about football today. Tony talked a little bit of MLS, which is something you don't see too often. And Tony also talked some basketball, but me and you have mostly focused on football. I'm going to move this one over to baseball. Garrett Cole is the crown jewel, in my opinion, of the free agent class this offseason, him or Anthony Rendon. And Garrett Cole will be a Los Angeles Angel. He's been linked a lot with New York and the Dodgers. And I just see him. I think he'll go home to LA. He's a California boy. I read an ESPN article about him, and they said he just screams Cali. And truthfully, if you see the way he talks about his hometown, he loves California. It's really just Garrett Cole is a California kid. He's the definition of it. He's got big money coming this offseason, and the Angels have a tendency to overspend. They will throw big money at Garrett Cole. I'm talking $300 million at Garrett Cole. They're gonna give him a I think a long-term deal, because they've wasted Mike Trout's prime in the cellar of baseball. Mike Trout, one of the best players in baseball history. I think when we retire, we look back on him, we'll talk about him as a top 10 player of all time. I truthfully believe that. I think he's won 4 MVP awards now. But moving back to Cole himself, he has ditched the Yankees for California before. He has. In 2012, I believe, when he was first available for the MLB draft, he was drafted by the Yankees late in the first round, and he said no to go to UCLA, and then eventually, after a good career at UCLA, was drafted by the Pirates in the first round. You're just going to see another repeat. They've constantly avoided each other. He was available at the trade deadline when the Astros got him. The Yankees didn't shell out for him. And now you're seeing people say, "Oh well, now it's perfect timing. The Yankees want to spend. They need a big pitcher." The Angels need everything. More importantly, they need someone to put fans in the seats besides Mike Trout. They've been a basement dweller for years, and they have the best player in baseball. It's absurd that they can't build a team around him. They got the big free agent in Shohei Ohtani a year or two ago. Now watch them bring in Garrett Cole. This is where they truly start to build a team, and hopefully they can get Mike Trout to a postseason for once in his career. And he could stop looking like he's surrounded by a bunch of AAA baseball players. Now back to you, Carl, for your hot take.
I'm going to go back to the NFL and say that the Eagles are going to make the playoffs this year. I mean, they've had a rough few weeks, but looking down at their schedule for the next rest of the season, they're going against the Dolphins, the Redskins, and as for the Cowboys, I mean, they're going up against some rough teams for the rest of the season.
And Eagles got the Cowboys at home, and they also played the Giants twice down the line.
Yeah, exactly. So I'd say that's my hot take. I mean, they're number 2 in the NFC East right now, and I'm sure that'll change.
Oh, yeah, no, I could totally see that. You got Deshaun Jackson going to get healthier, Alshon Jeffrey going to get healthier. When Alshon Jeffrey's healthy, he's a number 1 receiver. He's an elite target. Watch him get healthy, watch Carson Wentz find himself, and watch Doug Peterson work the late magic he always does late in the season to get them to the playoffs.
All right, well, that's something we can agree on today.
For once.
Yep.
Thanks, guys. Well, that'll do it for this edition of Stoppage Time. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We hope to see you next time on Stoppage Time. Take care.